there's the phrase like communication is key. And I heard this on another podcast. I forgot who the comedian was. Basically, it's not communication is key, like good, open, honest communication is key. That's like saying the key to good painting is paint, or the key to a good meal is the food.
Totally, yeah.
Welcome to the X-Files, a podcast about breakups, broken hearts, and moving on. I'm Claire.
And I'm Janice. We are breakup coaches, here to help you beat your breakup,
Heal your broken heart,
and move on to an amazing, abundant life. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of X-Files and another guest interview. You know, Claire and I have so much to share with everybody. We haven't been doing as many guest interviews as we did in the early days of X-Files for that reason. But we've had a couple on recently, and including this week's episode, which is with Brian Dunn, who is a friend of mine. He is a dating and relationship coach, divorced father of two, and I would say a very knowledgeable dater and someone who's very good at open communication, which is why I wanted to have him on. Brian and I do a weekly clubhouse room, and I've gotten to be good friends with him through that. And through doing that room with him, I've just been so impressed, like constantly and consistently, about his dating tips and his ability to ask for what he wants and navigate relationships after divorce. So I was really excited to have him on.
So especially if you're a male identifying listener, we know that you're about 50% of our listeners, honestly.
Yes.
So this is an episode for you. One of my favorite parts is through listening to a lot of his stories throughout the interview. I was like, this guy does not have trouble getting dates on the dating apps, which is not something I typically hear from men about dating apps. So
he had a lot of luck. I think at one point, I believe that he told us that before his current relationship, following his divorce, he went on 80 dates. 80 first dates.
First dates.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's lots of stories in there. We hope you enjoy that. I just wanted to make a note too. I think in the beginning of the episode, Brian mentions a book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, and says it's the male form of codependency. And we just want to note and acknowledge that codependency is not gendered and any person can be codependent. I don't think Brian meant anything by it. So we just wanted to note it in the intro so that you didn't think suddenly that men can't be codependent. So
the views expressed in the episode do not necessarily represent the views. No, I stand by everything he said. I think that's a really good point. As someone who actually has attended Codependence Anonymous meetings, you know, I can absolutely assure you it's something that affects everybody.
Exactly.
I think sometimes, you know, issues of attachment and issues of codependence affect men differently, and so I'm glad that he suggested the book, and I'm glad that you're giving a note there, and I'm glad we did this episode. I think it's valuable to have his perspective as a dating coach, and also equally valuable to have his perspective as someone who just, man, he does dating, right? Don't you think?
Yeah. It was awesome and very interesting. So we hope that you enjoy this episode.
Before I forget, I'm a big fan of Brian. Please go and check out his website, briancdunn.com. Of course, we will drop it in the show notes as well. Go check out what he is doing. I'm really excited, to have his voice in this space. With that, should we get on with it, Claire?
Let's get on with it.
Okay, welcome to X-Files, Brian. How is it going over in sunny San Francisco?
It's going really great. And yes, it's been a little overcast lately, but today weather's really fantastic. So it's great sitting here in the afternoon, sun shining in on my plants and stuff.
Oh, well, we've been on the struggle train here in Denver with the weather as well.
I'll try and send some of my sun your way.
Thank you. We sure do need it. But I'm breaking one of my rules, which is to not talk about the weather on the show. So let's get into it. Brian is a friend of mine, and I know a bit about his backstory, and I've been so excited to share that. And so I thought maybe we would start out the episode talking about your breakup story. I know that the fact that you're divorced is a big part of your story that you speak really openly about. So let's get into it. Do you mind maybe telling us about it, and then how it actually took you into the industry of dating coaching?
Yeah. Happy to talk about my marriage, my divorce. I've had some relationships and breakups since then, but the divorce was like the big one. So I got married very young. I was a dad, married and became a father at 2021, married for 17 years, had a second child when I was around 27. They're both big adults now, mostly adults, most days. And, but yeah, so 2015 or so, I basically had been starting to have some gears turn, but realizing I wasn't happy. And so a few different things happened, but realizing I'm not happy. My wife at the time, my ex-wife, and I haven't really had a conversation like about anything but the kids in like a good 7-8 years. I can remember.
Wow.
Like we would drive between San Francisco area and Seattle, where my parents live. And for Christmas, that's like 14-15 hours one way. And 2014 Christmas, I was realizing in the car, like, we're listening to music, kids are in the back, but we're not talking. And I don't remember the last time we talked on one of these trips or in a car about anything but like what's going on with the kids. So that was one of the first things. And then I realized kind of a few things here and there. I'm happy at work. I'm happy with, talking to my friends, have conversations, I laugh with my friends. But when I go home, it's what the kids are doing, or sit down, take care of the family. Weekends are errands and just being a dad. But I started to realize like the marriage was just co-parents and roommates, but not so much the relationship between, husband and wife anymore. So that got me starting to feel. And then I went to a few therapy sessions and was talking about that to kind of figure out what was going on and come
on
to
your
terms
own?
With the therapist at first, just to try to process that.
But not couples counseling, just
not
like
yet, not
alone
yet.
thinking about it.
Yeah, because I was starting to feel shame, like what's going on. I'm because when we got married, it was okay, we get married and I'll take care of the family and fulfill my husband duties and take care of everyone. But that just became my life, was filling that obligation, and I had lost track of myself. So yeah, I went to therapy a couple of times, took home some tools from the therapist, like to work with my wife on, and to start having that conversation. For example, just bringing out my feelings, and then what kind of relationship do we want to have, and how do we co-create that? Like, how do we work on building that together again? And as we started having those conversations, we started working on things. The more we tried, the more it was apparent that my feelings had gone cold many years prior. I mentioned like we hadn't had conversations, but like it was basically a sexless marriage with, birthdays, Valentine's Day, kind of the obligatory times. But other than that, like, good 5, 7, 8 years, that was what our marriage had become. So yeah, so the more we tried to rekindle things, the more clear it was that things weren't working. Like we were at like an anniversary dinner. The two of us went out to dinner, and she was talking, and then she looked at me and was like, okay, now it's your turn. And I sat there and I couldn't think of anything to say. And it was
like no desire.
Well, I mean, I was just drawing a blank, and I just sort of slow motion saw like the look on her face. And after like 30-40 seconds, I thought of something, but it was just like so strained. We did get through the dinner, and we went, walked around town and looked at, some little gift shops and stuff. So we had a decent time, but that was like one of the big times where I realized, yeah, I'm trying, but there's just nothing there anymore. So it became a process of, how do I process this on my own, work with her, and sort of extract myself from this, giving her enough time to come to terms with everything, and then get to a point where she was okay. Then we could tell the kids, and then sort through how that's going to look with me moving out and what all of that becomes. we did try to go to couples counseling, but also she was having a very hard time. So just getting her to be able to go see somebody, that was a little bit of a struggle. And so the person she liked, we had an opening like once a month. So she went like 2 or 3 times, but it was still like, I wanted her to go to be able to process things. She wasn't taking it very well. But just that whole process was a matter of, how do I do this as gently and as thoughtfully as possible, while still respecting that once I woke up from this kind of sleepwalking days or this coma that I've been in for so long, I can't go back and force myself to pretend to be happy and be fulfilled in that relationship anymore. So it was a matter of getting out. And then from there, it was a multi-year process of going to therapy and co-parenting and figuring out how to best be there for the kids who were around 13, 16, 17 at the time.
Wow, that's rough.
And so my younger one, right when she started to hit puberty, also our cat of like 14 years passed away, big sister went off to college, I moved out, like everything hit her at once. And it was just so much going on for her. But that was
when
just
it rains, it pours sometimes.
Yeah, when it rains, it pours. So that was just dealing with that, and getting back out on my own and figuring out, okay, what do I do with my life now that I have, woken up and see that I want more out of my life than just fulfilling a role of taking care of other people. I needed to take care of myself. So just figuring out what that looks like, basically moving forward.
I keep on having these like kind of shots or images in my mind of like a movie or a TV show or something, because what you've just described is depicted like so often in TV shows and movies about, couples that get into this kind of rut and deciding that they don't want, that one of them, or maybe perhaps both of them, don't want to live this way anymore, and that life is meant to be more full of joy. And then, deciding, wow, what do I do next? I don't really know myself. And I'm just picturing you, looking onto the horizon of the Golden Gate Bridge and, just trying to decide what's next.
Yeah, it was scary, but also empowering to realize, like, waking up and realize I had all of these other feelings and desires for life. But looking back, it was like we had got together so young. We changed over the years. I had grown through work and career, and she was mostly a stay-at-home mom, but had jobs here and there, really focusing on the kids. And we had moved from Seattle area to Northern California. But we just really grew apart, grew in different directions. And we, like, if you're the same person you are at 35 as you were when you're 20, you haven't done much growth. We had just gone through so much and become different people. And the other thing was, just looking back, when I got out of my marriage, wanting to make sure I do better next time and are better in relationships, so learning how to communicate, but also how to continue to nurture the relationship. Like when we moved to California, she was very worried about having a babysitter. I think we had like one date night out of all those years since 2004 to 2015, where we actually had a babysitter and went out, because she was worried of it.
No way. No.
We did have like one weekend to Las Vegas when my parents came down from Seattle to watch the kids, but we didn't nurture it. We didn't have our date nights. We didn't continue nurturing our romantic, husband-wife relationship. That was one of the biggest factors, I think. And so that was just how we basically stopped nurturing that part of our lives and just became those co-parents and the roommates. I think.
So when you woke up from this, it sounds like you gained like a lot of awareness about the relationship, about maybe what led up to things ending the way they did. And so I guess that awareness continued after the breakup and as you started healing, and that's how you found coaching.
Yeah, so that process took a while, because I was making up for lost time, kind of like any free weekend I had, kids every other weekend, but free time, trying to fill it with dates and just feeling like I was wasting time and didn't really know what I was doing, but I was trying to. And I probably had around 85, 90 dates, close to 100 dates in the first 14 or so months.
How many different women?
Oh, no. So that's first dates. I had like a six month. Well, I didn't really know what I was doing.
What was your percentage success rate for second dates?
Yeah, that was the thing. Like the first 3 months, I was like, I keep having these first dates, but it's not going to second date. And that was part of me not knowing where I was or what I needed or hadn't been growing and wanting a relationship or wanting a girlfriend, but not really being ready, and other people seeing that. But about 3 months in, I went on like 3 or 4 dates with somebody. And after the fourth date, she said, so over the summer I had moved out, but we were still separated. We weren't divorced. California, it takes 6 months from when you file to when divorce can be finalized, at the very minimum 6 months and a day. But I hadn't filed paperwork even. So this person had 3-4 really great dates. But after the last date, she texted me and said, it's really hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that you're technically still married to somebody. And so that was the end of it with her. And that was kind of like, okay, I need to push this forward. I was trying to give my ex-wife time to process and come to terms with everything. She did end up being diagnosed with clinical depression. And so there was a lot of ups and downs over like the next 2-3 years from that. But that December of 2015, had a really great first date with somebody. I actually had tickets to see The Weeknd down in San Jose, on like, I forgot what tour it was, but this concert. So I took her on there on the first date. And then our second date, we went to this really nice bar / restaurant. We had some drinks overlooking the ocean in San Francisco. And she was like, I know you just got out of your marriage, but I think you're really cool. And would you be open to dating, but not exclusively? So you could still date other people, but we could still, pursue this and not have it be exclusive. So we were together for about 6 or 7 months leading into 2016. And so that's part of the period where I was still going on first dates with other people, still getting my sea legs back, so to speak, and learning what I was doing and what I wasn't doing. And then after that, I was in a relationship for about 1 year and 8 months. And so that relationship was another big eye opener for me, just realizing what I want, what I don't want, and being able to speak up for my needs, and which wasn't something I had done in my marriage or like in general in life. There's a really awesome book, especially for men, called No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's sort of the male version of codependency, where you happy wife, happy life, and whatever you want goes. Then you're sort of trying to make everybody else happy with a covert contract that if I fulfill your needs, then my needs will be met, but you're sort of living in resentment and unhappiness because you're never speaking for what you want. Near the end of that relationship, I was realizing something's off with this relationship. Can't quite put my finger on it, but I'm not really happy and I want more. Afterwards, I did like my own little journaling exercise and realized that, besides, some of the general things, I wasn't quite ready emotionally, but also I realized that there's certain things I want out of a relationship, and I'm a very sexual person. And that part of the relationship was with her wasn't where I, ideally would want. And I didn't realize that at the time, but it took me a few months after that to even realize and be able to put my finger on it. Okay, so here's another thing that I really want out of a relationship, a non-negotiable or like a must-have in a relationship. So starting to get to the point where I could be able to identify what I actually want out of a relationship and not just the idea of being with somebody.
I'm so glad that you're saying this, because Claire and I both work with men, despite what some people believe. we're very used to hearing. I know you probably mostly work with women, but that's actually not true at all. And I've been hearing this type of thing from lots of men. So I'm really glad that you're sharing that. I think it's really important. I think that a lot of men feel powerless in their relationships, and a lot of men don't know how to talk about it and don't know how to identify why it is that they feel this way. And I think it's so important to have male voices in this space. I think it'll encourage a lot of people to, seek to bring the same type of gratification into their dating lives.
Good. Yeah. So after that, I went through a few other relationships. I was a non-primary partner to someone who was in a poly relationship.
Oh, we're going to talk about that. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We'll get there. With him and so that was, I needed some time after that 1 year and 8 months relationship where I tried to date and then realized that I wasn't ready to date. But just when I was starting to come to that realization, she found me and said, hey, what do you think? And so we were together for a while. And so that was a nice kind of in between where it was without the pressure of like a full monogamous, like serious relationship, but we could still spend time together. And then later on, I realized that I wanted a little bit more out of life and relationships. And like with all the first dates, sometimes there's reasons where it ends at the first date. And so for me, that was realizing I knew about like relationships part and I was getting good at that, but the first date part and kind of the chemistry and the flirting was where I was lacking. So I actually worked with a coach a few years ago, like 3 years ago or so. And that was my big holdup, was my own self-value, self-worth, and realizing that it's okay if I flirt and I do things that create that kind of chemistry and attraction on first dates. Because if you go through first date and you're very gentlemanly and talking about different things, you're creating like a platonic connection and showing up that way. But if the woman doesn't realize that I'm interested, then it's like, oh, there's no spark. It's kind of that mysterious element that's missing. So once I was able to do that, then it kind of opened up things for me. And I wanted to go through coaching because I'd been in really great relationships with really amazing women, but a lot of times they were super into me on that first or second date. And then things kind of fell into place where I wanted to have more of an ability to be more proactive about pursuing or showing my interest to make things happen on a different level, where it wasn't just being in like the passenger seat or the back seat. It was me taking control.
Yeah, being the pursuer rather than the pursued. You mentioned a few times not knowing that you weren't ready and then realizing, oh no, I'm not ready. How did you know that when you were ready, and what do you recommend to people in terms of that conversation with themselves in their situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's different for everybody, but if you can go back and look at the relationship and understand actually why it ended, not blame the other person, like own your own faults and accountability. If you know things you would have done differently, could have done differently, and can own up to that. I think that's part of it. And then I think
that's good.
The other part is more on the healing side. So are you actually excited to go out and meet new people, or are you doing it to avoid feeling lonely? Like, what is the reason for wanting to date? Are you trying to not feel lonely anymore, or that you should be in a relationship because that's what society or family or whoever expects, but doing it for the right reasons? And then like the third part is, I think, just being honest about what you want, because I totally think it's okay, and I advocate for people to date for reasons other than a serious long-term relationship if they're not ready for one. Just because you're not ready to find a partner and settle down and start a family doesn't mean you necessarily shouldn't be out there dating, but you just have to be honest, first of all, with yourself and then with the other people. So don't go out and say, I'm looking for a relationship, but then be the emotionally unavailable person who's been staying along for 3 months.
I've done that.
So knowing why you're out there, just being honest about it, and then let the other person decide if they want to engage with you, still connect with you, or move on if that's not what they're looking for.
We actually did an entire Clubhouse room on just casual dating, where we talked about it for 90 minutes. And I think one of my favorite ones, actually. And I think that there's a lot that can come out of dating without commitment. Could be another X-Files episode.
And it takes time to like learn how to date, because you don't go from being married 17 years to jumping into the relationship with the next person. You haven't tried, you don't know, you may end up with the same kind of person or issues in a relationship, but you also want to give yourself time to enjoy life a little bit and not feel like the relationship is the only version of you that's okay to
be. I might just agree with that.
So good. In that question, it kind of brings up this nebulous topic of communication, how to do it well, how to not do it well, or how to avoid not doing it well, I suppose.
You're right.
How do you feel about this term open communication, and like, where do you see the challenges both for yourself and for other people?
There's the phrase like communication is key. And I heard this on another podcast. I forgot who the comedian was. Basically, it's not communication is key, like good, open, honest communication is key. That's like saying the key to good painting is paint. or the key to a good meal is the
Totally,
food.
yeah.
It's like, what is the communication? Silent treatment or fighting, verbal arguments, passive aggressive, if that's communication, but it's not honest, clear, respectful communication. So for me, I think
probably the person I spoke to the most in like the entire everyone I've ever dated was actually my abuser. I think that we probably actually talked more than anyone I've ever even known. And he was, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, not
communication, but
yeah. It reminds me a lot of how people say, oh yeah, I'm setting these boundaries. Like I need to be good at setting boundaries. But then if their partner sets a boundary, it's like, no go. They don't know how to respect boundaries. And then like part of communication is not just like verbal onslaught of all of your communication. It's also like listening back. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And it needs to be the two-way street. It's a dance, not a one person dictating. Even in like being able to DTR, I tell people, don't say what are we, because that's still you letting the other person decide and set the terms. It's here's what I feel, here's what I want, here's what I hope we could be, et cetera, et cetera. How do you feel about that? And so it's the two-way, not a I'm in the backseat of the taxi, where are we going, hoping it's going where you want to go. And it's not a here's what I need from you, take it or leave it. Well, I guess it sort of is, but it is that you have to listen and respect the other person, because it is like a dance. It is a two-person partnership, outside of poly or whatever.
Could be more.
It's a two-person communication.
Start with two.
You have to listen and respect. Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah. And I think that starts with getting really honest with yourself, because you can only be as honest with somebody else or as close to or intimate with somebody else as you are with yourself. So you have to really know how you're feeling. And some people, like a lot of men, grow up not knowing how to be in touch with that, or recognize their feelings, or anybody in a family that was told, feelings aren't important, or don't cry, or suck it up, or that's the luxury. And it's kind of survival mode. You don't know, like even in those situations, your feelings, your wants, your needs aren't important because, somebody said so, or because that doesn't help the family survive or make ends meet.
Yeah.
So a lot of us grow up learning that what we want and what we feel doesn't matter, and we don't have the emotional language to process that or to know how to communicate that. It'd be like growing up and only being able to see a few colors, like black and white, like those movies where it's black and white and you see red here and there, like as a guy, and you don't know how to process a lot of emotions, but things bubble up into like anger or whatever that is. That's like everything's black and white, and then you see red sometimes, but we don't have the emotional vocabulary, the emotional language to deal with that. So if you can get to a point where you can recognize, actually, this is what I want, how am I feeling right now, and be able to express that, understand yourself, then it's a lot easier to communicate, rather than sitting there and, how do I feel? I don't know how I feel. I just feel lost, and he's sort of like in a haze, versus being very clear about what's going on. And even if you're partway there and you can say, I'm not really sure, but this is how I've been feeling. And that's where the conversation, the two-way conversation comes into play, where you can at least understand and listen, rather than withdrawing or going cold for a week, going radio silent for a week, or running away because you don't know how you feel, or they don't know how you feel. It kind of sets that apart. But if you can at least be open to that, and I think even just going to therapy or having some sort of outlet to talk about that with friends, therapy, something like that allows you a safe space to be able to start admitting that, especially for men, that it's okay to not know everything. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have feelings that you don't know what to do with. It's okay to not have the answer, but you're still searching and you're being honest, and not, having a mask on that says, oh, everything's fine, I'm fine. And then you end up in a depression, or using alcohol or substances or something to deal with the fact that there's no other outlet for you that feels safe.
I like that tip a lot. Thank you. I think that's a really great segue into the semi-main topic of today's conversation, which is defining the relationship, also known as the DTR conversation. One reason I was excited to invite you as a guest and excited for this conversation is in the time that I've gotten to know you, particularly through our Clubhouse, because we share a lot about our lives on Clubhouse. You have shared some stories that just really left me thinking like, wow, we can talk so easily about open communication and what it looks like, but his stories are like, whoa, he would just was like completely faced with this. And in real life scenarios, and the way that you navigated it, I thought was really, really valuable. And also it seemed to me that you learned a lot about open communication and defining the relationship through, just being faced with opportunities or like chances where you kind of had to do it.
Opportunities. I like that spin on it. Some people might call them traumatizing experiences, but we call them opportunities.
And it seems to me that from what I've understood about your stories, that it really led you to the place where you are today as a date coach and someone who loves, who's actually an authority on this because you've done it. So I hope that you won't mind. I was hoping you would, kind of dive into a couple of these stories with us. You mentioned earlier this experience that you had after getting divorced, being given the opportunity to explore polyamory, and that was all about communication with this person. So I'm not going to give too much away. Do you mind telling us about it?
Yes. So, and to be clear, this is the poly person later on and not the open relationship at the beginning.
Damn, Brian.
So at the beginning, I mentioned before, so it was a few months, at the end of the year after I had moved out, where the woman I'd been on a date with, we were on the second date, she suggested we try like an open relationship where it's still okay. We would both date other people, but still have our time together. And that was like a good period for me to explore being in a relationship and openly communicate, have like ground rules as far as, what our boundaries were, but also not be so, have so much pressure on myself to be in a relationship with just her. I could still date. She was still dating, and we knew it wasn't necessarily going to be something super long term. Our one rule was, if you start sleeping with anybody else, just let the other person know so they could have an informed decision.
But this is like pretty high level communication for someone who's just gotten divorced and is now dating again. And for someone to just be so open with you about the fact that they want to have multiple partners and, having these conversations can be really confronting. Did you feel confronted?
It was actually kind of eye-opening because of just where I had come from and through a religious upbringing. There's other things I had to deal with, but just the fact that people could be open and say, this is what I want, and I'm okay with something that doesn't fit like the standard narrative of what a relationship looks like. But it was refreshing. I was like, that sounds nice, because I don't feel pressure to do one thing or the other, and we can just continue with this. And so that was really fantastic as far as just communicating with each other and having our together time, our away time. She lived up in the city and I lived further away, and I had my weekends with my kids. So just balancing that, but I still got to, we still had like road trips and weekends away and cooking at her place and like film festival and SF. So we were all, doing sorts of things that were relationship related or kind of being in a relationship, but without the pressure of what else is going on and are you cheating kind of thing, because it's discussed beforehand. It's not cheating. It's understood that I was still new and fresh out of a marriage and not necessarily ready for a serious long-term relationship, but it was still worth pursuing and spending time together in that capacity, just to, because we all have needs and we all want connection and love and intimacy. And so that was a way for both of us to be fulfilled in that respect without all of the pressure that comes with like a standard, like a normal relationship.
I mean, it sounds good to me. Yeah. Personally.
And just being able to communicate that up front was really great.
What do you advise for people who are like, oh, that sounds really good, except I know I'm gonna fall deeply in love with this person, and then I'm gonna be left brokenhearted, even though right now, this is exactly what I want and what I feel prepared for, but I'm gonna get to know this person and then I'm gonna be hurt. How do
that's a good
you
question.
avoid that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's what you mentioned there, just being self-aware enough to know what you're capable of and what you're not. If you go in blind and you think, oh yeah, I got this, I can get in there and not have any feelings, and you're sort of in denial or lying to yourself, you may get so far down the rabbit hole that you're sort of stuck with this person where you had an agreement up front that was different than how you're now feeling. But that just means you have a little bit of growing to do, and face yourself and have that conversation with yourself. Realize that if you keep going without saying anything to them, that you're just going to become more attached, and it's going to become more difficult for you. So you either have to walk away or have that conversation with the person and see how they're feeling. There's actually, it's not a massive uptick, but there is a growing trend of something called fast sex, slow love, where normally people get together, they date for a while, then they have sex and then get into a relationship. But with more casual relationships and people not getting into, finding the relationship as early, there has been a growing trend. And I heard this, I think, from the Match.com data scientist, and she's like got PhD and all this kind of stuff. But she was saying that from the data that they do an annual survey of thousands of people, that there is this growing trend that people are having these casual relationships, but realizing, a few months, 6 months in or whatever, they actually have been spending so much time together that they grew to, have feelings for each other. But if you can have that conversation, say it's another DTR conversation. Hey, I know we said this at the beginning, but actually this is how I've been feeling lately. So I want to talk to you about that and see how you feel, see how that comes across to you, what comes up, see if that's something you want to be, you'd be open to exploring again, or like continue to explore, or if it's going to be too much for you and that's not what you want. So that's the being honest with yourself and being able to communicate that to the other person, and just getting to that point of knowing what you want, and can you communicate that in a way that respects the other person and what they want, and accepting the hard part sometimes is accepting their yes or their no or whatever, because you want things to go your way, but and that's like honesty with yourself, boundaries with yourself, and respecting their honesty, their truth, that their life is what they want, and then their boundaries, what they say yes or no to.
Yeah. So this was what you consider to be an open relationship, and this kind of I guess opened you up to the possibility of later on being in a polyamorous relationship.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was non-exclusive, and so that looks a little bit different than a polyamorous relationship. And I think they're, depending on the person, they're like 7 or 9 kinds of poly, but it's basically up to the people,
like a dozen.
It's up to the people in that relationship to define the terms of what they're okay with, what they're not okay with, and set those rules, and for all the parties involved to abide by those rules. So after my 1 and 8 month relationship, I tried to get back out. So that was around 2017, 2018. I got out of that. I was trying to date again and doing the typical guy thing, like, I'm just going to jump right back out there. And after a few months, I realized, what am I doing? I'm having feelings, and I need to take some time to heal those. But right as I was starting to wind down on dating, I connected with somebody. She reached out to me and said, hey, can we grab some drinks? And then I said, sure, this is what's going on, but sure, yeah. And she was actually she had a primary partner that she lived with, but she was poly, and so she was looking for other partners, like one or a few other partners to have this relationship with. And so that's sexual, but it's also intimate, and just kind of being in a relationship but having multiple people, like having different friends that you spend time with doing different things, and that brings different things to your life. So I was open to that, and we had that date. We went on a few other dates, and we just started spending more time together. And because that was something I had done before, but also it took off the pressure of, I don't need to be this, the only person, and kind of the pressure of having the obligation of building into that serious relationship with her. Then it was a time for me to be able to connect and take my time to heal without completely turning everything off and sitting at home alone, but also without being in a full like serious monogamous relationship where I had to be ready to be fully present and healed with my emotions. So it was a good, I'd say like 5 or 6 months or so that we spent together. And that was really a lot different because it wasn't just like a non-exclusive or an open relationship, but because she had a primary partner and had myself, and then sometimes would go on dates with other people. There's a lot of boundaries. There's a lot of communication. So this is, having your STI checks and communicating, using protection. And when was the last time you had a check, and just being very open about that. And then with jealousy, of course, it's a lot more communication. So just knowing that whatever rules she had with her primary partner about what she would tell him or not tell him, and then what I wanted to know, what I didn't want to know. So just figuring out what those are. And it takes a lot more communication and honesty and maturity, I think, than a normal relationship, because you have to communicate all these and navigate what all of that feels like. Hey, this is how I'm feeling today. I'm not sure. Could we talk about this? Or when that happened, and when I didn't hear back from you, this is how I was feeling. Can we establish kind of check-ins and communication guidelines for us to make everybody feel comfortable? Whereas like a normal relationship, you go in for 1, 2, 3, 4 dates. Will they text back? Won't they text back? And is it too soon? If I say something, will they run away? So it's very ambiguous, very hazy. Whereas like in a poly relationship like that, you have to be very clear to navigate that without hurting people and just respecting everybody, because there are so many, not a ton of partners, but there are different people involved, and you want to be careful with it.
Yeah, there's so much unspoken in like what we've grown up with as like the typical relationship dynamic. There's it's so much is unspoken. And then also, like, I think it's really good that you're highlighting that it's not just one conversation. It's multiple conversations, and these things change. And sometimes you have to see how you feel about something before you realize you've never experienced it before. So how do you know that actually that's not going to work for you? So it might mean revisiting conversations. And that's something people can apply, whether there's one partner or many partners.
It's one thing I just really love about polyamory. I'm kind of on fire about poly these days, you two. I mean, I have to say, I'm loving this. Brian, if you can think of anything, and if you don't mind me asking, what do you think was like the most uncomfortable thing or most uncomfortable conversation that you had during this polyamorous relationship?
I don't know that it was uncomfortable, because I had gotten to a point where I just knew I had to be super honest with myself about what I wanted and was ready for and wasn't. Had it been years prior, in other relationships, I was afraid to say how I was feeling or unsure about, and I had some fuck ups that I regret, but it taught me kind of to open my eyes to, instead of doing things and acting out, to just listen to my feelings and to my heart, and not act in ways that are sort of like protest behavior, or that may get me in trouble because I'm too scared to actually have the conversation like that. So I got to the point where even at the beginning of that relationship was like, I'm not ready for like a relationship. I'm still healing. I went through this stuff, but we can spend time together. And this is where I'm at. If it's 60%, I'm not going to be at 100%, but I'm maybe at 80% soon. But if that's acceptable to you, you're sort of negotiating the terms of a relationship up front. So both people, everybody knows what you're going into it with. And so that taught me to just be okay with the fact that I'm not going to scare somebody away, or if I'm not enough for them in that moment or at all, then that's okay. And there's abundance, there's not scarcity. But if you're too scared to say how you're feeling because you don't want to rock the boat, that was my big thing for years and years and years. Like the codependency a little bit is, if I say something, if I say what I want, then they may be unhappy. And then I'm just trying to make sure everybody else is happy to not rock the boat. I had to get to that point, like I said, where I'm comfortable saying what I want, even if that rocks the boat a little bit, because I have to be true to myself first and foremost. And so that was one of the big points for me in those years of post-divorce is learning to listen to and acknowledge what I'm feeling and what I want, and be okay with that, even if it means I may let somebody down or disappoint them, because I have to be true to myself first.
And I believe, from what I understand, that you took this all in when you decided that you were going to transition out of this relationship.
Yeah. So the poly relationship ended. So we were still dating. It was the new year. And after like 3 or 4 months, I was feeling better about like my own well-being. So she and I had a discussion, and I started going on dating apps again and stuff. But I did meet somebody, and I wasn't looking for anything serious right off the bat. And the person I connected with was divorced and had a 3-year-old son. So at the beginning, it was just, spending time together and seeing where it went. And I was, going on a few dates here and there with other people. But I started to actually have really strong feelings for this person, this single mom. So that was sort of a transition where I knew that I was in a different place and I needed to bring things to an end with the person I had been in the poly relationship with, and just do that as delicately and as respectfully as possible.
Yeah. It's amazing. What for someone who had not dated for 17 years, I mean, this is such an enormous amount of experience to gain kind of quickly, and such a diverse amount of experience. Something else I was hoping we would talk about is that you have also had opportunities to have open communication on very first dates. And, I think that there's a particular story that that I'm aware of that I thought would be really, really valuable to our listeners, because coming off of a breakup, I think that a lot of people feel like they can't use their voice on a first date, and that sometimes people do things that they end up regretting, for lack of a better word. So I'd love you to tell this first date story of yours.
Yeah. So I would love to tell the story.
Okay.
So this was very soon after, or like near the end of my time that I was working with a coach, a dating coach in New York, and learning how to be more open and vulnerable and like authentic to who I am, rather than holding back, but just being a little bit flirty and giving compliments and just owning my own attraction to women. So this was a first date. We met for drinks. We were having a good time talking. We talked, half an hour, 45 minutes or whatever. We went next door and grabbed some pizza. It's kind of an open place. They had different stands, and there was like a live band playing in one area. So we grabbed some beers, we grabbed some pizzas, and we're having a good conversation there with the band playing. And this was about 2.5 hours into the date. And at this point, like as a guy, it's with just perception and like image of how tough we're supposed to be and how like good with women we're supposed to be. I hadn't like gone home with a woman like on a first date. Like there had been times where technically it was, but it's not something I had done on the regular or anything like that. So I was just like, okay, I've never done this before. I'm just going to say to this woman, hey, I'm really enjoying talking to you. Would you like to like go back to my place or your place and just continue talking?
All right.
And she was like, yeah, I'm a grown-ass woman. Sure. Yeah. And then so we figured out the logistics.
And you're like, are you sure? We don't have to.
And it was,
I like that.
And I had no expectations of having sex. It was just to like wanted to kiss her, wanted to make out. So
you were practicing.
Yeah, just being more putting it out there.
Yeah.
And like you're not gonna make any shots you don't take. You're not gonna get anything you didn't ask for. So it was
all right.
Couldn't hurt. So we ended up back at her place, and we were on the couch and had the TV on or music or something, and we were making out and got a little bit more hot and heavy, and hands are wandering,
flailing
wildly. And she puts a pause and steps back, or like leans back and says, hey, I don't want to, just because of germs and thing, it's a little bit weird for me, but I don't want to be sleeping with anybody that's sleeping with anybody else. So if you don't have sex tonight, that's fine. If you do, just know that that's what I would hope for. And I would just want you to be honest with me. So I don't remember the exact words, but that was the gist of what she had said. And for me, that was totally fine. I wasn't expecting, I didn't need sex. I wasn't going to be mad and storm out of there. It was just, we just went out and we were having a good time.
Also, weren't you at your own place?
Oh, no, we were
you just storm out
place.
of your own place. I want someone to pull that move, though.
Yeah.
Just leave them like,
totally.
Yeah, it was a good moment, and I loved that she said that. And I wouldn't have pushed for sex anyway. We're just hanging out, but I love that she said that. And for me, I took a moment to process that and think that, okay, if sex means no other sex partners, basically exclusivity. I had this first date with her, I think it was like a Friday night, and I had a few other first dates set up in the following weeks. I didn't want to like say, I'm not going to go out with anybody else for the foreseeable future just because of how the last couple hours have gone. I don't need sex that bad, and I don't want to be dishonest and say sure and go along with it, but then continue to go out on first dates with other people. I said that was fine, don't have to have sex. And because for me, that exclusivity on the first date, that was too early for me. It's like, first dates, sex or no sex, I don't want to necessarily be exclusive with somebody after that first date. So I said that's fine, and we just made out some more, and we didn't have sex, but we had a good evening, and it went really well. And like Sunday, I think I invited her over, and we were watching The Witcher. This was a few years ago. We watched a couple episodes of The Witcher. So we ended up having a bunch of dates in the next 3 weeks. I did go out on a few dates with a few other people just to let those pan out and see where they went. But about 3 weeks in, I had already bought tickets to like an indie show in San Francisco, indie rock show. She had tickets to Hamilton on that same night. So we ended up going out. We went to dinner, went to Hamilton, went to the show. We had booked a hotel room in the city. And so after the indie show, we went to this bar and we were drinking and playing pool. Then we got back to the hotel, and it had been like 3 weeks of pent up making out, but nothing beyond that, So we get back to the hotel, and it was sort of one of those you see in the movies where it's like, get into the door, and then as soon as you're through the door, you're sort of fumbling around and stripping things off. And so that was finally it could happen. But yeah, so that was pretty amazing too. But just setting that boundary, knowing what you're okay with and being honest about it, and then seeing where it goes.
Yeah. And I bet that, in the hotel after an awesome evening, knowing like, actually, I do like this person. It's not just these 2 hours that I know about them.
Yeah.
It's probably a lot better.
Did you need to then have yet another communication or another conversation about what that had meant?
We the next weekend or soon after, we were talking about continuing to date, and this was at the very beginning of the pandemic, so things were starting to shut down, and I was mostly wound down with what I was in the dating I was doing. There was one person I had been on a couple of dates with, and first date she had said, I'm not looking for anything exclusive, because this other person was going to move to another city, other part of California, in 3 months. So she was just looking to date and not have anything exclusive. But yeah, so this person and I, who we were dating for 3 weeks and had that awesome night out. Yeah, we did have a conversation about, okay, do we want to continue dating? How is this going? And just to continue that, we actually went snowboarding up in, name escapes me now, but we went snowboarding and on a Saturday up in the mountains, and then the next day, Sunday, we had tickets for the next day, but the resort was shut down because COVID was starting to hit, and they were not wanting that. So we were kind of stuck up in the snow there for an extra day, but that was sort of the start of our pandemic semi-cohabitation.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, this isn't on our list of things to talk about, but do you have any tips for men on the dating apps? Because typically the problem is they can't get dates, and that didn't seem to be a problem.
Yeah, seriously, you were doing something right.
You were doing something right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So I don't know, rapid fire, just quick advice.
Yeah. So the first dates was where I needed all the help, but dating apps, I think it's more like a buyer seller market in real estate. So if more women want relationships or like more serious dating than men who are putting themselves out there in a good way, like a respectable way, and just showing up in that space, like good pictures, good bio. Then it's not hard to get dates. And maybe you disagree, but I think women care about looks less than men. So as long as like your presentation is good, decent haircuts, and you're groomed, don't have scraggly whatever, and decent clothes that fit, and you show up like and treat the person you match with or you're on a date with as a normal human being, I don't think there's a lot that can go wrong. There's more you can do, and I had to work on like the man to woman and like the flirting and putting my stuff out there. But if you go at it with just the curiosity of getting to know somebody and being respectful and hey, you seem cool, we have some stuff in common, let's go out. But yeah, the two biggest things are having decent pictures and a good bio. And pictures, guys, a lot of times, like my theory is why there's so many, here's me holding a dead fish picture, is because guys don't have a lot of pictures of themselves. It's not like we go out and say, here, I'm going to take a selfie here, or here, take a picture of me in front of this. We don't do that a lot. So when guys look back through their Facebook, what pictures do I have that I can put on my dating app? The picture of you fishing or hunting or whatever is usually one of the few that you might have, or like sunglasses at the baseball stadium, whatever it is. So they don't have a lot of pictures.
There's so many stadium photos. You're right. I never thought about that.
So we don't have a lot of pictures, but if you can take some time to take some pictures of yourself. Selfie camera, like holding the camera close, will distort your face. So if you can put it down, turn on the timer, stand back, you can get a better view and actually have some time to like pose, smile, whatever that is. Or you can ask a friend, female friend, guy friend, take a picture of you. Just having good pictures. If you are serious about like dating and want like to match with and find a high quality woman that you is on your level and you really want to build something with, even like a couple $100, you can hire a photographer and do a photo shoot, 2 or 3 outfits, and have some really awesome pictures.
Shout out to Saskia and Hey Saturday. We did an episode with her actually several months back.
So just putting in the effort there of presenting different sides of you, smiling. Like if your pictures are sunglasses, fancy car or whatever, you might come off as a little douchey. So like no sunglasses, no group pictures, nothing with like your ex in it or your ex cropped out.
Oh my God, no. Those are the worst.
Yeah, they're the worst. Just having decent pictures will take you a long way. And then no empty bio, actually filling out the bio, but having something that's actually your personality, maybe a little bit of humor. I watch a lot of TikTok, but there's so many laughable, like cringy examples of men that get so angry or have no bio or just write really awful things. It's like all you have to do is write
Samson. Have you watched her?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking about.
What is this, you guys?
Different prompt. Yes.
Yeah, she's like, pick a different prompt. Like, it's this woman on TikTok. She does these amazing viral videos where people send her screenshots of dating profiles of both men and women. But we can guess it was probably the men who they pick a prompt. You're designing your profile, you choose which questions you're answering. And in the question that they answered, they're like, I don't know. And she's like, pick a different prompt then. But
gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Man, that is a good point. You have to put in some effort.
So
when it comes
but the pictures in the bio basically shows effort. And if you're not putting any effort, then it looks like you're not really serious. Maybe you're not serious. But I think just being able to read between the lines of how much effort somebody puts in, how serious they are, what their personality is, at least gives you a starting point. And if you're a guy, you're putting in pictures from 5-10 years ago where you got sunglasses, you don't really see what you're about, and your bio's empty or just has random stuff, then there's not much for people to go on. So of course you're not going to get a lot of matches. So it's basically marketing and how you market yourself. You're still the same person. You don't have to be somebody else, but it's how you present yourself in that space that will get you more or less matches.
Yeah. And then coming back to the communication added with the date app question, obviously you have to chat with someone and, get into the DMs,
And
you must
them
have
to meet.
some tip or some, what do you do in the DMs that you're actually getting to the point that you're setting up, 80 dates in however many months it was?
Yeah. So this was like probably my strongest point, because I could ask good questions and flirt a little bit, be like accidentally charming in the DMs, but like the first date would be like where I would be very safe and not very forward. So the DMs, like when you match, a lot of people just say hi, hey, what's up, or how's your weekend? Very boring questions. And if somebody gets that like 5, 10, 50 times, they don't want to answer the same question over and over and over and over and over, and may just get ignored. So my tactic, my approach is just to start a conversation, put in some effort, show that you read the profile. So it's like, hey, Janice, so glad we matched. I love your third picture. Where was that taken? Or what's your dog's name? Or I see that we both like vinyl. What's your most valuable record? Or something that shows that you read the profile, start a conversation.
I'm on an app now, which I look forward to, telling you both more about. And the biggest thing that I've loved is I have something about thrifting in my profile. And I was the most excited about people who DM'd me asking about thrifting because they've read it. And I just thought it was a brilliant conversation starter. So yeah, I definitely say that's a great tip that people should use.
Yeah. And the apps now are like Tinder is still open-ended. Some of the others are open-ended. Bumble, Hinge, OkCupid as well. They have like the prompts you can pick and answer the questions. And so those are easy ins. If there's nothing really to go on, or you want something a little bit quicker, some kinds of questions that I would go with a lot would be like if it's late in the year, like what's been the highlight of your year this year? And so that could be family, it could be a trip, could be something at work, but that just very open-ended and allows the person to come up with something. It could be one that I really liked a lot was, and this also is good to show like what kind of lifestyle somebody lives, is what's your ideal Sunday? And then you give two examples and then like a line, like a blank line for the third. It's like sleeping in and going to the farmer's market as number one, or getting up early for coffee and yoga, and then a third, and then they would describe like what they like to do on Sundays. But just kind of that imagination allows you to see, are they somebody who's always outdoorsy and they want to go hiking every weekend, and does that fit with you? Do they like to do farmer's market or brunch? And kind of open-ended question, because people love Sundays. It's like our last day to relax before going back to work. So that was another one. Another one I asked like during the pandemic and got a lot of answers was like, what's a new skill or talent or hobby you've picked up being stuck at home? And so for me, that was like baking and banana bread. And then I got that turned into some fun conversation and some a little bit flirty conversations as well. So, and then you can see like, what have they been doing? Have they been learning a language or writing a book or just trying to cope? But it's everybody has been it's a shared experience.
My new hobby is coping.
My new hobby is barely getting by.
I mean, that probably rings true to a lot of people. I think everyone listening, take Brian's tips. I mean, you really are a coach. I can tell by the way you're talking. And, it again, though, just comes down to you put in a lot of effort into this, and you can tell, like these are very thoughtful ways to communicate with someone, just even inside of the DMs.
Yeah. You get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So I don't know. I feel like we covered this question that we just talked about. Okay.
Do you want to maybe just go to this last one?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't read the next one. Hang on a sec.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm happy to do it myself.
Oh, yeah. So what would you advise for someone who's maybe a little insecure, like they have a big inner people pleaser that they're very aware of, but, they still just blurt out whatever they think is going to make the other person happy. And then afterwards, maybe they're like, oh, well, that wasn't actually what I wanted. Like, how do you coach someone through communicating if they're insecure about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it comes down to it's like I used to be like that. Sometimes I still am, but you get home and you realize, here's what I should have said or could have said, or here was the witty response to that joke. but I think it's more authentic to what you feel and less self-filtering. And it can be hard to do that on dates, but if you can start to like smaller steps, like with yourself, like when the barista asks you, do you want this thing? Just be honest. Oh, no, thanks. If you normally say sure to whatever and go along with whatever, just standing up for yourself in smaller ways, and making commitments to yourself. It's also honest and commitments, but that also helps with confidence. If you make promises to yourself and stand up for yourself in those smaller ways, it can be asking for help. Like, I think it goes along the lines of, it's kind of related to not wanting to rock the boat, but also not wanting to ask for help because you don't want to kind of engage in that way. So being open to asking for help if you need something, or somebody says, hey, I'm going to Starbucks, do you want anything? And actually saying yes, and just allowing people to help you allows you to realize that it's not the end of the world if you let somebody help you, or if you say no to something, or that you do something that you're self-filtering that you normally would say no to or say yes to. So I think those smaller ways, those smaller steps are good to build up that muscle and that confidence. And then the other part of that, I think, would just be more of an abundance mindset, because if you're on the date with this person and they don't like what you have to say, it's not the end of the world. There's more people out there. Yeah. And then once you do that a few times, you start to realize that actually the difference of opinion is good sometimes. You don't have to be, oh yes, I love that book. A lot of people, they end up saying yes, 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 I love that, even when they have no idea what the book is or the movie is, or they hate that artist. And then they get down the road, oh, I thought you liked the Beatles. Because you said that on the first date, like, oh, and then you get caught up in that. But if you can even turn that into, it's okay to have those difference of opinions, or you say, I know Beatles are good. That's awesome. They're your favorite band. My favorite band is, and then some of those differences of opinions can be where the attraction comes from. So having your own opinion, not being afraid of having your own opinion, and then just being honest about what you like or don't like. It's okay if I don't like country music and she does, but this is my favorite music. And then you can get into that conversation and be passionate about it rather than pretending to like country music. I would rather talk about all the bands I go to see, or like my favorite show growing up, my most memorable experience. And that gets you into a more passionate and more authentic version of you, rather than just, oh yeah, me too, kind of going along with things.
Yeah. And what about as far as the difficult or sensitive or unpredictable conversations, which is what a lot of people struggle with?
Like politics
not just politics, but I think that even though I love that, I love that you went there, but what I more meant was something like, I'm really scared to ask this person, like where they're at in the relationship is more what I meant, or something or something like I was really disappointed that you did this. The types of things that people actually find it really hard to use their words and use their voice, because we're not taught to do it, or they don't know what's going to happen. Like that type of conversation is more what I meant.
Yeah. I think that's also part of building that muscle, that skill, and doing it a few times to see actually it works, and it's not the end of the world, and you feel better about it. I had a friend, so I know some people, and
you have friends.
One of them, I have friends.
I
have friends, but I mean, one of them, just kind of an example, it sort of goes along with things and doesn't want to bring up how they feel or what the relationship is, and so that's how you end up in a situationship, or going down different paths, or being on a different page, getting so attached, 6 months, 12 months in, when you haven't really talked about actually what's going on, and you may have a completely different understanding. But I had a friend who had she'd been going out with a guy like 4 or 5 weeks, and the communication wasn't great from him. Like, she wanted him to initiate more and have more communication between the dates. Like, if they had a couple of dates a week, she wouldn't hear from him for 3 or 4 days. And it was sort of not driving her crazy, but she wanted more out of their connection, because they had been dating for like a month or 6 weeks or something. So I told her, like, if you don't ask, you're never going to get it. They're not going to read your mind and know and suddenly change. If they don't want to, if they're not capable, then they can say that. But what does it hurt to try? So she had that conversation with him and actually said, oh, I'm really sorry about that. I will try harder. And then he turned around. Like it didn't last super long, but at least speaking up, she realized that, hey, it's okay to ask for what I want.
Yeah.
I'm not being needy just for saying, hey, can I hear from you between Sunday on our previous date and Saturday the next date? Can I hear from you during the week and just know you're still alive, or just what's going on, and have some communication there? And he's like, yeah. And then he was communicating better and texting, and their relationship blossomed a little more. And she realized, oh my God, I can ask for this. And that was a big turning point for her, just seeing that it was safe. It's not going to explode the relationship.
Yeah.
And even if the person isn't capable of that, would you rather know now or 6 months from now, when you've been holding it in and then you just explode? Like, why don't you text me? It's a way to, if you can't communicate that, then what happens when you are in a relationship and something is bothering you? You have to build up the muscle on the easy things where the stakes are lower. 1 date in, 3 dates in, a month in, the stakes are much lower than, and it's easier to build that muscle, that skill, than when you're 6 months in or 5 years in, and all of a sudden you realize, I don't know how to communicate with them. And anytime, it turns into passive aggressive, it turns into fights, whatever. Yeah. Your question. Build it up, small steps, small exercises at the beginning.
Do it once, realize you didn't die, and then keep going with bigger and bigger things.
I love just generally how vulnerable and open you are, Brian, and it's been really fun getting to know you, through our, supporting people on Clubhouse, and now through this episode. I really think we need more men who are willing to, just be out there about their experience the way that you are. And so thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to you both.
What are you most excited about in your business that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I am working on some programs, some multi-week programs. Hopefully we'll have one at least to launch this summer. I'm not sure if I want to do like a dating after divorce program first, or like a dating for men kind of program that's specifically geared towards men. Those are a couple of ideas I'm toying around with, but hopefully before too long, I will have something to launch on my website.
Yeah, keep your eyes on Brian's IG. Go follow him on TikTok as well. We'll make sure everybody knows where to find you. He has a great website with a really cool blog that people should definitely go and check out. And keep your eyes on this man, everyone. Thank you for listening to X-Files, a podcast about breakups, broken hearts, and moving on.
If you liked this episode, please help others find us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or by following the show on Spotify.
And if you'd like to connect more with us and learn about breakup coaching, find us on Instagram at X-Files Podcast.